It's time for a spring conifer update. Let's take a look at bud break. And I'll probably do an early one now and maybe a later one. This is the beginning of April, so I may do one the beginning of May. But let's start off with native US tree here. This is Taxodium disticum, bald cypress, and it is a deciduous conifer, meaning it loses all of its needles in the wintertime. And you can see here that the needles take the form of these almost fern-like fronds that just come right out of the branch here, and then obviously they get a lot bigger. Not too big, maybe about 2 or 3 inches long at most. And then new growth proceeds from the tip here to extend to the branch. And some of these side leaves will also become new branches as well. So that's how it grows. Pretty cool tree. Very long lived in nature, over 1,000 years. And so, yeah, this is a nice specimen. Probably, maybe 15, 20 feet tall, actually. And been in the ground for about, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. And when I planted it, the trunk diameter was about the size of your finger. So it's obviously put on a lot of growth since that time. And then right next to that, we have another deciduous conifer, but from the opposite side of the world. This is the dawn redwood, native to China. And you can see it has a similar texture foliage here. The growth pattern is a little bit different because if you look at the bald cypress, you can see that the branches emerge at a very large angle from the trunk, almost straight out in some cases. Whereas when you look at this one, there's a very acute angle. The branches definitely grow kind of an upward angle, and it's a little bit faster growing, I would say, than dawn redwood. They both love to live in soggy soils, but in this case I have them on dry ground and they're doing just fine. So that's dawn redwood. And then here's another deciduous conifer. This is the pond cypress, which some people dispute and say that it is the same species as bald cypress, but definitely has a little bit different foliage texture. And you can see this spring, as the new foliage emerges here, how those needles are a lot more twisted than what you saw on the bald cypress before. Those were kind of relatively flat sprays of foliage, and these have a little twist. And then when the foliage matures, the needles stay a lot closer to that center stem there. So different foliage texture. I don't really know much else about the differences between the two supposed species, but they definitely are pretty similar. Okay, this is the Momi fir and Abies firma, native to Japan. And I have 2 of these. This is the really tiny one, and you can see at some point in the past it lost the main leader, and now it's kind of just growing a little bit flat at the top. I may try to train up one of these branches to become a new leader this year, so maybe this one. Haven't really decided yet. I was a little bit hopeful that it would form a new leader on its own, but I may not wait for that to happen. So this is outside of the deer fence, and there was 0 deer browsing on it, and that's because it has these relatively sharp needles, which actually have 2 spines on each needle, you can see. So the Momi fir is just now starting to, well, it's been breaking bud for a while, I guess. So it's an early bloomer, which is, or an early bud breaker, I should say, which is a bit of a disadvantage because sometimes it does get damaged by late frosts, but luckily this year there was not one. And here we have the Table Mountain pine, Pinus pungens, which is off to a very fast start here, and native to southeastern US, usually up in the mountains, but so far is doing very well here in Middle Tennessee. And it's not really that fast of a grower. I think it only has 1 main push of growth per year from what I've seen so far. Maybe it'll speed up as it gets larger. And I should mention just the regular native eastern red cedar. This is Junipers virginiana. You don't really see a notable push of growth because it kind of just resumes growing all over. And you will notice, however, the formation of berries, which is really a type of cone, but a lot of people just call them juniper berries. And I guess previously there was a bloom that was pollinated, and now it is forming that little characteristic blue cone or berry that will remain on the tree pretty much for the entire year into the winter time, when birds will eat it and spread the eastern red cedar to new locations. That's why it grows everywhere here in Middle Tennessee. It's a very alkaline tolerant tree, likes to grow in disturbed soil, so such a tough tree. I can't imagine not having one in a southeastern U.S. conifer collection, so really satisfied with this one. This is the Arizona cypress, Cupressus arizonica, a new cultivar that I'm trying called Silver Smoke. I purchased this from wilsonbrothersgardens.com, and this is a very fragrant tree, so it is planted outside of the deer fence because I'm 99.9% sure they won't even eat this, because I have another one nearby they didn't touch. So I have to be a little bit selective on what I plant outside of the deer fence. It's really a dog fence, I'm just calling it a deer fence. But don't let that give you false assurance that everything inside the dog fence is that safe, because I've had a number of trees inside the dog fence that were in fact eaten by the dog. So long story short, this should be a deer-proof tree. As you can see, it has the blue glabrous foliage, and I need to stake this one up because it's a little bit tilted. I'm just holding it up now, but it is very fast growing and very drought tolerant. And a lot of people ask about the loblolly pines. As you can see, they are massive now. I don't know what that is, 40 feet tall or so. And at the base of the trunk, really huge. I don't know what that diameter is, but approaching a foot at the base of the trunk here. You can see by the size of my hand. And I've got some volunteer black cherries here. This is a deciduous tree, Prunus serratina, and I may actually harvest these and move them somewhere. I haven't decided yet because I really like that species. But yeah, loblolly pine, very reliable, very fast growing. Well, the fastest growing conifer in my whole collection is loblolly pine. And you can see this is what the new push of foliage looks like here. First week of April. And I believe a few others in the backyard, or maybe a little further along. And so why would you plant loblolly pine? If you want a tall tree that provides, I guess, maybe dappled shade. As you can see, the foliage is not that thick. So dappled shade, tall tree, evergreen, fragrant, super fast growing. Maybe there's like a second story window you'd like to have some privacy in, but you don't want to wait 20 years to get that. Maybe you get second story privacy in less than 10 years, like maybe 7 or 8 years with a loblolly pine. And it's a pretty strong wood, actually. In general, I mean, they use it for lumber, so it's, even though it looks like it maybe, to some eyes, it might look almost tropical, like something you would see in Florida. And in fact, it does grow in Florida, but it also grows very well here in Middle Tennessee and withstands snow and ice, no problem. Picea polita, the tiger tail spruce native to Japan, is usually the last spruce to break bud. And as you can see, those buds look pretty tightly wound up there. Maybe a little movement, but it's going to be a while. This is definitely one we'll have to check out in the round 2 update. Here we have black spruce, not to be confused with Black Hills spruce. This is just black spruce, Picea mariana. It is grafted, I'm sure, onto a Norway spruce rootstock. But the funny thing about this, I believe I purchased this from wilsonbrothersgardens.com. This is the Ario variegata cultivar, although it doesn't really have much gold on it. It's known for being gold frosted, so this suits me just fine because I don't really care about gold frosting. I just wanted the species and the green foliage. It's got a little bit of a blue-green color, as you can see. Some glaucous material there on the needles. And right there you can see there's no terminal bud on this little branchlet because it was eaten by a deer. So the deer have browsed it occasionally, but it looks like they only tried 1 or 2. There's one there, and maybe one back there they tried to bite. But crucially, by some miracle, they did not eat the leader, so it's going to keep growing at top speed, and we'll see how it does here. This is a very northern spruce species, so a little bit experimental here in the south, but so far so good. And here's a hybrid spruce, which so far doesn't have very good vertical apical dominance, vertical tendency, but it is a hybrid between Picea jesuensis and Picea glenii, two species of spruce native to Japan and eastern Russia, and so also another very cold tolerant species, which we'll see how it does here. And here we have a hybrid fir. This is the La Tenegre fir, which is a hybrid between Abies concolor, and which is white fir, and Abies grandis, which is grand fir. And unfortunately, this did suffer some catastrophic damage to the apex by deer browsing, but there does appear to be a bud right below that, which I'm hopeful will take over and be the new apex. So that's a white fir, Abies concolor, which is one half of the hybrid, does a pretty good job of establishing a new leader from side branches when the main leader is lost. So let's see, and you can see here some of the side branches were also damaged by the deer. Comes with the territory, I guess, of growing in a area with lots of deer. You can see pretty extensive damage on this side. And the thing about fir is I've noticed that the dog is more likely to eat fir, and it looks like the deer is as well. So it's not quite as sharp usually as a spruce, except for the Japanese fir that I showed you earlier. And here we have spruce pine, and this is Pinus glabra, native to the southeastern US, already putting on new growth, growing fairly well in general. I would say this has been in the ground for 4 or 5 years. It's a pretty fast grower, and I think it does actually put on more than one flush of growth per season. So I've mentioned it in a few other videos. It has a very fine textured needles, soft to the touch, not really much fragrance, and you can see that even the shoots are relatively delicate here, but it does grow very well. And it's got a little bit of a lean on this one here, but I think that'll be all right in the long term. It's kind of leaning away from the loblollies that are planted next to it. And right next to that we have a fir, which was luckily spared deer browsing at the apex, but that may not matter anyway. I can't tell if the apex is alive or dead. This is a Korean fir, I should tell you, Abies koreana, and I've had some trouble with one of my other ones with bud loss at the apex. So we'll see what happens here, although there's a really nice one here on the right, which should form a new leader. This is the Horstman Silberlock cultivar, and it's the one with the upturned needles where you can see the underside with that white glaucous material. Pretty cool tree. As we move along for another checkup, these new buds look a lot neater. They're pretty cool when they're breaking bud. So we'll check back on this one, but definitely an awesome tree. Pretty widely available online, actually. Korean fir Silberlock. So check it out if you want one, but I will say relatively slow growing when they first get started. Although last year this one did put up this nice push of growth here, which is, I guess, a solid 8 inches or more, so maybe it will speed up. Continuing with the spring conifer bud break update, here we have Pinus strobus, eastern white pine, just getting started, and luckily the apex was spared from the deer damage, but there's, as I mentioned in a previous video, plenty of deer damage all around. We'll see if these side branches end up producing new shoots. If not, it will be up to the remaining ones to keep expanding the tree, but as long as I have this top one here, I'm satisfied. And then right next to that we have Virginia pine, Pinus virginiana. Got a little cone forming here, plenty of new growth coming out of the tips of the branches, and you can see the male pollen cones right here on the same tree. This is, of course, the female pollen cone forming on the tip of this branch here. Very spiky, spiny, and a very fast growing tree, nice brown trunk. Native to the eastern US, very drought tolerant, so if you have one, don't water it. Pinus virginiana. And here we have the Japanese plum yew, Cephalotexus Harringtonia, doing very well. Very shade-tolerant tree. And this is the apex down here. Looks like it's just getting started. And I believe these on the side here were blooms or pollen cones of some type. I don't think that's the actual fruit. I think this is a male. So there were male pollen cones here on the tree. Really love the texture of this tree, as I mentioned before. It's got a nice good color now as well, so one of my favorites. And pretty much entirely deer resistant. We're still outside the deer fence. I don't really show these much anymore, but this is the blue ice cultivar of Arizona cypress. It's been doing very well. It kind of slowed down growing a lot after it reached about 20 feet in height. And some of the branches are getting a little bit spindly here. I may come through and trim some of this lower growth just to keep things sane. But it seems to be doing well overall. Here's a close-up look at that foliage. Very blue, or I guess covered in the glaucous material, which gives it a bluish cast from a distance. And another tree with a bluish cast, blue Atlas cedar, Cedars atlantica, native to the mountains of Morocco in northern Africa. Does very well here in Tennessee, but sometimes needs supplemental water when it's getting established. This one did survive extreme cold, so that's good news. Minimal damage. It hasn't really started to break bud yet, so that's also good news. We don't want things to break bud too early around here, and I don't think I've ever seen these damaged by late frost. Just wanted to show this overall view of 3 large Arizona cypress trees here to give you an idea of the size they attain. That behind them, growing above them, is Thuja green giant, which is obviously going to get much taller, but these have kind of spread out and become a little bushy, and as I mentioned before, slowed down on the growth. And you can see down there at the bottom where I'm working on my ridiculous yet hopefully effective rock strategy. Here we have Picea abies, Norway spruce. This is the Paul's Select cultivar, which is noted for its blue colored foliage, and looks like it's sprouting in the interior first, and the buds at the very tips of the branches are going to sprout last, which is great. There's the apex, no action at the apex yet, and that's good too. If by some miracle there happened to be a late frost, I don't want to lose the apex, so good. I mean, I hope it does eventually break bud, but I'm satisfied that it hasn't yet. And next to that, we have the Korean spruce, Picea koreana, starting to break bud on some of the lower branches, but similar to the Norway spruce, nothing up top yet. And I think those two spruces might be somewhat closely related on the kind of like the spruce family tree. There's a cool graphic out on Wikipedia if you go to the Picea genus page that kind of shows how closely related different spruce trees are. So they have different categories of spruce tree, and check that out if you're curious. I did, because I was curious what was closely related to Norway spruce, and I think Korean spruce is one, and I think maybe Koyama spruce is another one. So this is Korean spruce, Picea koreana. Okay, here we have Taxus cuspidata, Japanese yew. This is the Amersfoort cultivar, so it has these kind of stunted leaves, and it's putting on new growth. Very unusual textured foliage for a conifer. I really like this one though. And here we have the Yunnan spruce, the Picea purpurea. A little bit of action here at the apex, a lot more action further down, starting to break bud. And Picea Chihuahuan spruce, no real action. Well, I'd say there's a little bud expansion, so in a few weeks we may have something, but no truly broken buds yet. A little bit of a problem with this one because, as you can see right there, I lost a leader last year, so I'm gonna have to do a little trimming on this one. I so wish that this tree was outside of the dog fence, because it's by far the spikiest in my whole collection, and you know, just the thought of a deer chomping down on that and realizing Hey, I shouldn't be eating someone's trees. Very, very tempting to plant another one outside just to see if they could withstand the deer, but oh well. And here we have Lijiang spruce, Picea lijiangensis. No broken buds yet, which is good. Another great feature about this tree is it does wait to break bud later. And I don't think I've ever had any frost damage on this one either, or lost any leaders. So here's the main leader up top. Maybe a little bit of needle damage from the cold on some of the needles. You can see that purple, but that's never slowed down the tree. So here's what it looks like overall, by the way. Gotta show you this. Getting pretty tall, maybe approaching 5 feet. And it's been in the ground for a number of years now. 4 or 5 maybe. One of my favorites. And I planted it when it was pretty small. It's actually one of my earliest videos, I believe. Pinus flexilis, the Vanderwolf pyramid pine. I'm just getting started. Lots of elongation here on the new buds. So it's a pretty reliable grower as well. Here's what it looks like overall. As you can see, it's got a bluish cast to those needles because one side of the needle has a stomatal band and the other side does not. No movement yet on the Japanese umbrella pine. They're usually a little bit later to break bud. By the way, that species name is Ceodopatus verticillata. And here we have the Atlantic white cedar, Chamaecyparis thyoides. This is the red star cultivar, a kind of a dwarf cultivar that keeps the juvenile configuration of foliage throughout its entire life. This is one that you may have seen in my other videos where it turns purple in the winter, but it's already greening back up and starting to put on new growth here. Curious to see if it will continue growing relatively quickly. So it's not really a dwarf, I think. I have this one as a single trunk tree. Pretty cool, conifer. And I wanted to show you my other Abies firma. This is the larger one. And you can see it's pretty far along and leafing out here. And I'm gonna have to get up to the top and fix that apex. I was waiting because I didn't know if we'd have a late frost, but got a whole bunch of mess going on up there. I'm gonna have to trim stuff out and pick a winner. Just getting started on the Nico fir. This is Abies homolepis, native to Japan. So never really had any damage due to late frost on this one either. This is Junipers rigida, Japanese needle juniper. Or not Japanese needle juniper. Well, maybe it is the name of it. Anyway, Junipers rigida, native to Japan. And it's growing very well. Has a nice blue color to the older foliage. And this new foliage comes out green, but will take on that bluish cast later on. It's been a relatively fast grower, so I'm very curious to see how this will do. And here is the apex of Picea glauca, white spruce, and this cultivar is known as Black Hills. So pretty confusing for someone that doesn't know, but the species is Picea glauca. That's all you need to know, really. Picea glauca densata. Getting started. And even though I showed you a Paul's Select Norway spruce that was putting on new growth earlier, there's not much action on the regular Norway spruce yet. But I'm sure it will take off soon enough. Actually, there's a little bit of early bud break happening there. So just getting started on the regular Norway spruce. And here we have the Taiwan fir, Abies kawakamii, breaking bud on some of the lower branches. The upper part is more of a mystery here. And you can see, I think I've lost this leader, but there are some branches lower down which could take on the mantle of new main leader. Abies nordmaniana. Nordman fir has not really broken bud yet, although there are some impressive male pollen cones down here at the bottom. Really cool the way they hang under the bottom of the branch there. But so far no bud break, which is a great thing about the Nordman fir. I may have said spruce earlier, it's fir. Nordman fir native to eastern Turkey, nation of Georgia, in the Caucasus Mountains, and southern Russia. Does pretty well here in Middle Tennessee. This happens to be the tortifolia cultivar, but I bet if you search online you can just find regular Nordman fir. And here we have the dragon spruce, Picea aspirata. Getting started. There's the main leader, waiting till the last, which is great. Native to central China. A little bit of a bluish cast to the foliage on this one as well, and I'm super excited about this one because a lot of stuff I've read online says this is one of the species, along with Picea paulata, tigertail spruce, that are ideally suited to growing in the Middle Tennessee climate. So if you can find them, they're both pretty rare, but Picea paulata and Picea aspirata are definitely worth trying in a Mid-South conifer collection. Of course, Norway spruce as well. And here is the white fir, Abies concolor. This is the blue cloak cultivar. And as you can see, I've had some trouble with leader loss, but it's usually establishing a new leader here. And I bet that we're going to get a bud break eventually on this one. We'll see. But so far, not much action. And here we have the Oriental spruce, also native to eastern Turkey, nation of Georgia, southern Russia. This and the Nordman fir kind of grow in the same area along the Black Sea coast there up in the mountains. And it's kind of a race, it's an opposite race between this one and the tigertail spruce to see who can break bud last in the collection. So it's going to be a while before we see any bud break on the Oriental spruce. And the deodar cedar is breaking bud. Cedrus deodara, native to the mountains of India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan in Asia. This is the Carl Fuchs cultivar, which is one of the very few that can withstand the cold temperatures of Middle Tennessee, which you should really take note of if you're thinking about getting something from the Cedars genus. There's all kinds of different deodar cedars out there, and Lebanese cedars and this and that. The only cedars that I would attempt in Nashville is this one, the Carl Fuchs deodar, or the Ice Regan deodar, or the Blue Atlas cedar. And if you really want to try Lebanese cedar, you need to get the Stenocoma cultivar, which I do not have, but that's the one that's the best chance to survive here. Here we have the Eastern North American yew. I don't really know the name of it. Maybe Canadian yew? Texas canadensis is the species name. Just getting started. And another Eastern North American yew. This is Taxus floridana, native to Florida, as the name suggests. Also just getting started. Abies pinsapo, Spanish fir. No real action yet, but it seems like there are plenty of buds that can put on new growth. And here we have pitch pine, Pinus rigida, putting out some long shoots here. And also is a really interesting look at the, what I believe are the male pollen cones of Pinus rigida. Pitch pine, native to the southeastern and northeastern U.S. along the Atlantic coast. So far, relatively slow growing, but not super slow growing, but just slow compared to other pines. And this is incense cedar. This reddish coloration at the tips here, I guess, is the only indication that new growth is happening. But as with all members of the Cupressaceae family and that have the scale type foliage, sometimes it's a little hard to see when new growth has started. But incense cedar, one of my favorites. Growing relatively close to a loblolly pine behind it, but so far that hasn't slowed it down. It's been a very fast grower. Just getting started here on the Serbian spruce, Picea omorica, and no real action at the apex yet up here. Looks pretty good so far. Japanese white pine, Pinus parviflora, branching out everywhere. A little bit of a mix up here in terms of where the real apex is, but I'm sure that'll get sorted out over the next few years. Red spruce, Picea rubens. I'm almost certain that I lost the leader, but I'm hoping one of these side buds can take over and push new growth, but it looks like it's just barely getting started at a few of these side branches. And here's Hicks yew, which is a hybrid between Taxus baccata, English yew, and Taxus cuspidata, the Japanese yew, getting started. And here is straight species, Taxus cuspidata, Japanese yew, getting started as well. And Chinese hemlock, Tsuga chinensis, breaking bud. Here we have shortleaf pine, Pinus echinata, already putting on new growth, native to the southeastern US. Relatively fast growing so far. And Scotch pine, Pinus sylvestris, putting on some impressive growth here at the side branches. Just getting started at the top, looks like. Pinus palustris, longleaf pine. A little hard to see what's happening up here because it's getting so tall, but we can look at this side branch here and get an idea that it has broken bud. Taxus baccata, English yew. This is the festigata cultivar. Maybe just getting going there. See some small bud breaks. And another yew, Chinese yew. This is Taxus chinensis, breaking bud pretty well. Hasn't really done the apex yet though. We'll see. Wilson spruce, Picea wilsonii, native to central China, already breaking bud. And here's Vejar fir, Abies vejarii, native to northeastern Mexico, just starting to break bud. And this is the regular straight species Atlantic white cedar, Cypress thioides, breaking bud, and also I guess maybe these are blooms. Can't really tell. Maybe these are the female cones. I'm not really sure about the morphology of Atlantic white cedar. It's not a lot of information about it. I guess maybe these are the cones. But overall it's a very sparse see-through tree, as you can see. Interesting growth habit. A little bit experimental as a screening tree. I can't recommend it. It's very see-through, but as a specimen in a conifer collection, it's really cool. So definitely get one. Here we have a Qinghai spruce, Picea montagena, native to central China as well, breaking bud. Platycladus orientalis, all kinds of action going on here. And looks like there's some cones forming there at the top, but it's starting to grow again. And the foliage grows in these very flat sprays of scale-like texture. Junipers chinensis, Chinese juniper. This is the Ketaliri cultivar. And you may have heard me say in a lot of other videos about how Chinese juniper is susceptible to tip blight here in Middle Tennessee, but the Ketaliri is supposed to be resistant, and I believe I've seen some examples growing around town here that tell me it mostly is. So we'll see over the long run. So far so good. And it has started to put on some new growth at the tips there. You can see that lighter green shade. And I should point out, this is the Berkii cultivar of eastern red cedar we already looked at earlier. Junipers virginiana, and it's putting on, I guess these are going to be the little blue juniper berries as well. So this is obviously a female tree. Berkii red cedar, really cool, native blue colored, native to the eastern US, blue colored conifer. Can't go without it if you like blue colored conifers. This is one of the best. Picea crassifolia, I forget the common name, but it's another central Chinese spruce. There's lots of different species of spruce growing in central China. So this one hasn't broken bud at the apex yet, but some of the branches have. Here's Picea koyamae, Koyama spruce, native to Japan, breaking bud. nothing at the apex yet. And here we have a hybrid fir. Again, this is, I believe, a hybrid between Abies Korean fir, and Abies Lasiocarpa, which is subalpine fir, native to the western U.S. This is the Inga cultivar, I believe, and as you can see, it has a bluish cast to the foliage. Just getting started, relatively small specimen, but so far pretty reliable.